We spend over 6 years in primary school and over 5 years in secondary school, right? So it stands to reason that in these institutions, that is the place we will most likely develop stronger friendships, right? From childhood into our teenage years into early adulthood. It stands to reason that that's when we will experience our best friendships, right? But something tends to happen, and this is true for my life. I don't know if it's the same for you, but as we got older, you might want to go to college, you might want to go to university, you might start working, right? As we progress and as we develop in life, more friends tend to fall off, right? We begin to have fewer friends, and often we become loners, you know, later in life. And that could also be compounded by maybe not having siblings, right? Maybe not having close family. Maybe your family are in a another country. Maybe you don't get along with your family. So it leaves a lot of so-called lone wolves in society, right? And then, of course, you might add impactful events such as the pandemic, which will further the decline in sociability and trying to even connect with friends, right? And then to add to that, we have an over-reliance on social media communications, Facebook, Twitter, to communicate with family, and often those communication styles replace the normal kind of meetups that we would typically have, like reunions and stuff like that. So this, in my opinion, creates the lonely situation that a lot of us find. But the thing for me is that there are different stages in a man's life. I think this is what a lot of people who are almost braggadocious about the lone wolf lifestyle is that there are different stages in a man's life. And this might be controversial to some, it might be offensive to some, but we need to be honest. And I like to believe that over the years of you watching my videos, realizing that I have nothing to sell you but thoughts and opinions, I'm hoping that there's a level of trust that has been developed. A lot of guys, in my opinion, are living life late. What I mean by that is that in a normal, natural situation, right, and I know this might be controversial to the RP guys out there, but in a normal, natural situation, if you're honest with yourself, there should be a time where you begin to quote unquote settle down. Ideally, you are not living alone when you are 30s, mid 30s, 40s, most certainly. You are with a companion, right? Creating companionship, and I think that that natural stage often or naturally will impact old friendships because everyone is in their own little den, creating their own little nest with their family, spending time and prioritizing time with their family as they should. You're not going to find a lot of people, particularly men. I just had to reset the calibration and stuff like that. But you're not going to find a lot of people, particularly men, who are available to just hang out later in life, right? Who just want to chill. There is a natural circumstance to a lot of men becoming loners, prioritizing family, and I think that we should have an honest discussion about that, right? Typically, a lot of people are trying to evade and trying to promote this lifestyle, which is basically, for me, it's like it's the polar opposite of feminism, I'm all good by myself, I can be independent, I can do good by myself, I don't need no one. And that's no good either. A good question or a good topic is obviously analyzing whether, things that people speak about, divorce rates and liberal lifestyles, how these things affect modern relationships, right? That's a worthy discussion, but there should also be a concerted amount of energy into thinking up of solutions or trying to identify people that don't relate or are in alignment with your ideals as a man, right? I just think that this whole forget relationships, forget family, I'm just going to focus on myself. It becomes self-destructive. And one way it becomes self-destructive is the very well documented health risks associated with a lonely lifestyle. And let me tell you this, man, as someone who has lived alone for a long time, I align with the implications. Yes, I can honestly say at some points in time, even as an introvert myself, someone who thrives by myself, Sometimes you might go through bouts of depression being alone. If you haven't developed a social life outside of living alone, which is something that you need to really prioritize, you might start to do things that are kind of illustrative of some form of psychosis, right? You might be speaking to yourself. You might be having internal conversations with yourself. You know, onset of Alzheimer's disease is also associated with loneliness, you know, and some people might go the extreme route in using vices to deal with this form of depression. And unfortunately, these vices will accelerate the issue because basically it will make you reliant on the herb or the pill, and you can't naturally heal yourself. You can't naturally get out of the funk yourself without a vice. Now, I'm not saying go out there and find a mate and cohabitate and all of this. No, that's not what I'm saying. And again, this is the extreme mentalities that are present. But all I'm saying is to think without bias. For example, living alone. I've mentioned many times, this is a vital experience that people must have, because in that time frame, you learn a lot about yourself. You understand what you want, right? Even from simple things like living in your own environment and styling things, designing things in the way that you want, right? Having that level of freedom needs to be experienced, because in some cases, if you don't have those experiences and you go into some sort of cohabitation situation, you might start to long for, I wonder how life would be if I was just by myself, in my own place, doing my own thing, right? So yes, living alone is vital, but I would never ever suggest the idea that you should be living alone. You should live a life by yourself. It's just extremely counter to what a human being is supposed to be and what we've always have been. And this is no shade to the people that want to focus on themselves and their careers and stuff like that, but we need to really take a step back and think about that. And how different is that from the whole feminism movement that a lot of people are trying to counteract? It's still leading men to be lonely, probably depressive, without any close human beings to rely on, to depend on, to love. So for example, some people might say, Falcon, my location doesn't enable me to find maybe a mate, for example. Then I would suggest put energy into seeing how you can move to another location that might be more fruitful for what you want in your life. You know, I'm not trying to say that is easy, but it's definitely doable. You know, it's definitely within your power to move locations, whether it's nationally or internationally. Now, call me blue pill if you want, but the optimal situation for me has always been for a man to be with his woman and with his family. Another thing that a lot of people won't ever admit to you is that as we get older, we actually lose a lot of drive. We lose the drive to, just make money, just get skills. Again, this aligns with the whole stages of life principle. We are not designed to have the same motivation throughout life, right? A 20-year-old will have a very different drive than a 60-year-old. And it kind of makes sense to me because, we are built to die, essentially, right? So in order to ease the process of death, right, we need to start to come to accept death without longing to live, because we got all these skills that we want to complete. Gradually throughout life, our energy declines. And so this is why a 40, 50, 60-year-old cannot live the same life or aspire to be the same as a teenager, someone in their 20s, someone even in their 30s. Now again, there are certain life circumstances where it might draw you into being a so-called lone wolf, and that happens to the best of us. But I think that, again, an equal amount of effort should be put into finding or trying to find people who are of like mind. Again, trying to form your own tribe. It could be your own family, right? But the acceptance to just go on living alone, in my opinion, is something that's just going to be detrimental to a lot of people's mental and also physical health. But let me know what you think below in the comments. Am I capping? Am I blue pilling? Or are there some facts to what I'm saying? With that being said, peace.